Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today we're going to be learning about the 2001 Ford Mustang Bullitt. In January of 2000, at the Los Angeles Auto Show, a concept Mustang was released, which was called the Bullitt Mustang. Now, this wasn't spelled the same as a bullet which would come out of a firearm, but was actually reminiscent of a movie back in 1968 about a Lieutenant Frank Bullitt, with the last name being spelled Bullitt, who was after a mob, and this had one of the most famous car chases in history, which took place on the San Francisco streets as a 1968 Mustang GT390 chased down a black 1968 Charger. So Steve McQueen, who played the role of Lieutenant Frank Bullitt, was driving this GT390 that was supposed to be a very low-key undercover car. You'll see it did not have fog lights, it did not have a very flashy paint job in that dark undercover green, and at the same time it did have some performance options like a really nice set of wheels and definitely a very nice GT390 throaty V8 and the other things to get the job done. So all of these things would carry over into the concept for the 2001 Mustang Bullitt GT. So although the 2001 Bullitt was supposed to be an undercover low-key car, it did come out that way, but there are a lot of hidden features on it that you may not have recognized. Starting from the front, you'll notice that the corral, or the area that goes around the running horse, has been darkened, and so that was kind of an undercover thing. It was still there but blacked out. You may also notice that the Bullitt does not have fog lights. However, all of the wiring, and even the wiring behind where the switch would go in the dash, is still there, so it was very easy to buy a switch and buy fog lights if you did want to put them into your Bullitt. Now, the Bullitt came with a very big, beautiful hood scoop. From inside the car, it was very apparent that you had a lot of power under the hood, and that was the same hood scoop that would come out for the entire 2001 through 2004 GT model. But the Bullitt was one of the first cars to have that, as well as the other '01 GTs. From the side, one of the things that would definitely grab your attention as this contrast with the low-key color were the 17-inch Bullitt wheels, which also had 13-inch brakes on them, similar to the Cobra, except for these had the running horse laser etched into the actual brake caliper. Very nice touch. The Bullitt also had very subtle, smoothed-out rocker panels with a mud flap at the front. Towards the rear, you can also see that the rear side scoop was smoothed out. So that was actually a specific piece for the Bullitt. No honeycomb. It was a piece that actually made the car a lot smoother and low-key. And some people just overlook that, thinking the car never came with side scoops, but it is an actual Bullitt-only piece. Bullitt-specific C-pillars and specific glass came in on the rear quarter, and these would later return on the 2003 and 2004 Mustang Mach 1. One of the very obvious features on the side, which was allowed to stand out, was the aluminum fuel door. This was reminiscent of the 60s, and a very nice pattern with the running horse logo on the back side. On the driver's side rear deck lid, you would find the lettering Bullitt. Now, if you pay attention to the B on Bullitt, you'll see that it resembles two little bullets, and so that was kind of a little hidden feature. In the rear, one of the things that made the Bullitt stand out the most was the fact that they did not put a rear wing on it, and this was supposed to be the undercover theme continued. The Bullitt also received its very own exhaust with a signature sound and 3-inch rolled exhaust tips. The Bullitt Mustang also sat 3/4 of an inch lower than the standard GT. The Bullitt also came with Tokiko shocks, which would also later be used on the Mach 1, and different diameter tubular stabilizer front sway bar, 28mm. To stiffen up the ride, Ford also added subframe connectors to the Bullitt. Under the hood, the Bullitt received a few minor tweaks, an F-150 water pump, a different alternator, but most importantly, the big aluminum intake manifold. This was said to only increase 5 horsepower, but would bring the torque on very low in the RPM range. The Bullitt also had a twin 57mm throttle body and some underdrive pulleys and some other things that would make some minor differences. Now, the Bullitt was actually going to have the 32-valve V8 in it, but at the time that was still owned by SVT, and apparently there were some kind of legality issues, and they wanted to also separate the Cobra from the Bullitt a little bit. With these changes, Ford rated the Bullitt at 265 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, but later came back and updated that to 275 horsepower. Torque remained at 305 pound-feet. Each Bullitt was individually numbered and came with two holographic stickers. One of these was in the engine bay, located near the strut tower, and the other was found beneath the rear seat on the driver's side. I'll include a link in the description that shows you where and how to find these. The one under the engine bay was prone to fading, and so Ford actually put out a recall where you could go in and get a replacement sticker, as long as you could prove that you owned the car. As you went into the car, on both sides, you would find a very nice Bullitt door sill. Inside the cockpit of the Bullitt were some very nice touches. For starters, the seats were very nice. They had a retro style to them, and you would see that they were actually the same style as the 2001 Cobra would have, just all leather. You also had very nice aluminum pedals and an aluminum brushed shift knob. The Bullitt also featured very special gauges with a retro font. These gauges were very nice. They went up to 150 miles an hour, and they would light up in white, which was not common for any of the Mustangs of this era. So how did the Bullitt perform? Well, a few years later, when the Mach 1 would come out, a test was done in 5.0 Mustang magazine. And what they did was take a 99 Cobra, the new Mach 1, and then the Bullitt, and ran them all together. And the results were pretty surprising. The Mach 1 ran 0 to 60 in 4.7, the Bullitt 5.15, and the 99 Cobra 5.25. The quarter mile, the Mach 1 came in at 13.19 at 106, the Bullitt 13.59 at 102, with the Cobra coming in at 13.62 at 105, so just a little bit faster of a trap speed. And so we weren't sure if the fix had been done on the 99 Cobra. As you may know, the 99 Cobra struggled with some horsepower issues, but overall what it was showing was the Bullitt could get to 60 faster and barely edge out the 99 Cobra through the quarter mile. So this spoke volumes of the GT and some of the changes that have been made to the Bullitt. The Bullitt still had the stock 3.27 rear end, so there were still a few things you could do to a Bullitt to make it even faster. All 2001 Bullitts also came with the new TR3650 5-speed transmission from Tremec. Now with the Bullitt, the only option you could get was Mach 460 stereo, and so the only other real difference after that would be daytime running lights, which was required in other countries like Canada. So those were the only really two different things that would make one Bullitt different from another. And for a special edition car, the Bullitt was actually very fair priced. Came in at just over $26,000, which I guess is pretty decent considering you're not getting fog lights or a rear wing, but you are getting a lot of other things with it. Some of the pre-production Bullitt concepts were pretty interesting. You'll notice the front bumper was different. It swooped down a lot more in the front. The fog light area was a whole different bumper. Wheels were, of course, a little bit different, and you can really see that dip here in this picture here. But something that was very interesting is it had the Terminator bumper on it, so that would later become the Terminator bumper, and as you can see, the rear wing was something that they were considering, but they just couldn't get the costs and everything right for it, and crash tests, everything else that you would have to do for this car, just kind of put the car on hold, and they made it as close to a regular GT as they could in other ways, and that way they could avoid having to have the car retested for all these different crash tests and everything that the car would otherwise have to meet. If you really like Mustangs, you've most likely heard of a Roush Mustang, and this comes from Jack Roush. Now, he owns Roush Performance and modifies Mustangs, and as you may know, he also works hand in hand with Ford on many occasions in development of vehicles. Well, one of my favorite stories that has to do with the Bullitt is when Ford came to Jack Roush in the year 2000 and they took one of his 2000 GTs out of inventory. It was actually black. And they fully converted it into a Bullitt Mustang. After Ford was done with the car, with whatever tests and whatnot they were doing with it, they came and told Jack Roush that they were going to scrap the car. And Jack's response was, quote, "Wait a minute, that car is ours. It does not get scrapped," unquote. And that car is now comfortably living in his collection. So I thought that was really neat that he would stand up for a car that was going to be scrapped. As you know, a lot of test cars from Ford are eventually scrapped, and so it's kind of a sad deal for a car that's otherwise perfectly good. And for people like us who enjoy these cars, it's really sad. But anyway, it was a cool story about the Bullitt. For the year 2001, Ford actually offered 3 different colors for the Bullitt. Dark Highland Green, 3,041 made. Black, they had 1,818. And the most rare, True Blue, with only 723 made. In total, this brings the number to 5,582, but that number can also go up to 5,601. That would include the 3 non-sellable prototypes and some other cars that were probably during the manufacturing process and testing. So of the 5,582 made, the Steve McQueen family actually received 4 of these Bullitts. And they were regular production cars. However, they also received a special sticker showing Bullitt with McQueen 01, 02, 03, and 04. One of the very popular Bullitts was one that was shown in the debut as it was jumping in the streets of San Francisco. The car was actually driven by Steve McQueen's son, Chad, who did the photo shoot here jumping the car. And then the car was then sent back to Ford for a thorough inspection. It went through some of the press photos, and press people had the car for a while, and then it was auctioned off in 2005. And a funny story about this one is that later, Scott Hogue, who is basically the creator of the Bullitt project, found the car and saw that it was serial number 34, and when he figured that all out, he actually gave the owner a certificate of authenticity, so that was kind of a neat story. For more information on the Bullitt, I would recommend going to International Mustang Bullitt Owners Club, the IAMBOC. And that's a very good website. My twin brother owns a supercharged Bullitt that you'll see on this channel. And anyway, he's on there all the time. Very great website for more information. So thanks for watching this video about the Bullitt, and I'll include in the link some videos about my brother's 2001 True Blue Bullitt. It's Eaton supercharged, built bottom end, cams, very beautiful car. And so anyway, let me know in the comments what you think and if you have any questions. Thanks.